So consider the following conscious experiences: feeling pain, tasting a delicious cake, having an orgasm, or feeling sad. Clearly, these experiences are different from one another. However, they all have something in common. They all feel pleasant or unpleasant. They all feel good or bad. Clearly, pleasant and unpleasant experiences play a central role in our life. In fact, the quality of our life is, at least in part, determined by the pleasantness or unpleasantness of our experiences. Therefore, understanding the nature of these experiences is of the utmost importance. What I'm interested in is whether we can give a scientific explanation of pleasantness and unpleasantness. Some people are going to tell you that we will never be able to give such a scientific explanation. Why so? Well, the argument is something like this. Science can only deal with objective facts. However, pleasant and unpleasant experiences are subjective. Therefore, they simply lie outside the scope of science. I'm not convinced. The last 20 years of scientific research suggest that we can make genuine progress about the scientific understanding of subjective phenomena. You might think that I'm talking about the recent development of neuroscience, where new brain imaging techniques allowed us to see what is going on in our brain when we are having certain kind of experiences. However, I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that neuroscience is a very interesting and fascinating field. However, at the present stage, the only thing that neuroscience can do is tell us the neural correlates of our experiences. But I'm not interested about correlates. I want more than correlation. I want an explanation. I want to know what pleasant and unpleasant experiences are and how they work. So let me tell you where I put my money. There is an interdisciplinary research program which is called cognitive science. The basic idea of cognitive science is that the mind is an information processing system. Basically, it's a kind of computer. You can unpack this idea into two theses. The first one is that your mind is populated with mental representations, having a certain kind of content or meaning. For example, my mind and your mind contain the concept dog, which is a mental representation that has the meaning dog. It stands for dogs. The second idea of cognitive science is that mental processes are manipulations of these mental representations. Basically, all that the mind does is playing with these mental representations. So basically, if a cognitive scientist wants to give you a theory of subjective experience, we'll try to develop a theory which is based on mental representations, the meaning or the content of these representations, and certain kind of operations performed over these representations. Let me give you an example. In this moment, you're having a visual experience. This visual experience has a subjective character. There is something it is like for you to have this experience. This experience feels a certain way for you. At the same time, this experience has a certain kind of content. It represents the world to be a certain way. You have a certain scene in front of your eyes. A cognitive scientist will tell you that how your experience feels can be reduced, can be explained by what your experience represents. In fact, if you try to attend to your visual experience, the only thing you will end up attending to are the objects represented by this experience and the properties of these objects. For example, in this moment, your visual experience comprises a blue sensation. But what you experience to be blue is my shirt, is not your experience. So the idea is that there are no mental qualities over and above the qualities that the mind represents the world to have. So now let's go back to pleasant and unpleasant experiences. Can we use this approach to explain pleasure and pain? And the answer is almost. Consider a painful experience. The unpleasantness of your experience doesn't describe things to be a certain way, doesn't represent the world to be a certain way. Rather, it motivates you to do something. An unpleasant experience, a painful experience, motivates you to get rid of the experience itself. How can we explain this in a cognitive science style? Well, here is a proposal I tend to like. Your pain experience has an imperative content, a content that commends rather than describes. So the idea is basically the following. Visual experiences are telling you how the world is. Pleasant and unpleasant experiences are telling you to do something. They are commanding you to do something. And the idea is that their pleasantness or unpleasantness is just identical to this command. There is nothing over and above this command. So now you can ask me, but what is this command? What kind of command is issued by pleasant and unpleasant experiences? Okay, here is my hypothesis. A pleasant experience is an experience which commands you more of myself. An unpleasant experience is an experience which commands you less of myself. These help us to explain two things. The first thing is why we want to get rid of unpleasant experiences and why we want to keep on having pleasant experiences. It also explains why these experiences are pleasant or unpleasant in the first place. To use a metaphor, pleasant experiences are self-loving experiences, while unpleasant experiences are self-hating experiences. Of course, at this point, you might want to ask me, but what could be the function of these bizarre experiences? And how is it possible that evolution selected for these bizarre experiences? As a matter of fact, I have an answer to both questions, but I don't have time anymore, so I will tell you the answer the next time.